Welcome back to our first episode of the reintroduction of Beyond the Mortgage. I'm very excited, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me that have been so happy to see that we've brought back Beyond the Mortgage. I'm here with my incredible marketing team, Daniela, who's going to be joining me today for our first podcast back. So welcome, Daniela.
Hello, everybody.
And I've got Brendan behind the scenes as well. I know you can't see him, but he's the one that's bringing the magic to light so that all of you can view us today. We've got a lot to talk about. It's been a while. Part of the reason why we're bringing back the Beyond the Mortgage podcast is we've had so many people reach out to us asking about it, wanting to really get some good feedback. We know that the world is ever changing. And as I do a lot of speaking across the country and to teams, it's good to be able to sit down and really break down a lot of what's happening in the markets and how people can navigate this complex world we live in. So what a great hour to be able to do that with you.
Yeah, and I'm excited because we're really kind of changing things up this time around, which I know we kind of had to take a step back and reevaluate what was good, what was maybe needed a little bit of tweaks. And I think that we came together and really came up with something awesome that I'm excited to share with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get going.
Awesome. So let's start by getting into the heart of things. So why bring it back? What was it that made you decide, you know what, Daniela, we have to do this. Let's bring it back.
Well, I think for me, over the years, I've really found that a lot of people really stay connected with me and resonate with the authentic conversation that I have and being able to break down complex situations and different strategies to really help people just overall in life, whether it's financing, personal growth, understanding what's going on and navigating our markets. So for me, having conversation and being able to bring, like the podcast Beyond the Mortgage, back into that space again helps me have an outlet to be able to really inform people and give them some good clarity and have candid conversations of what I have on a day-to-day basis with people in our community, right? What's challenging for people right now? What's pressing, what's a lot of the questions people are asking me, we can bring it to a forum where we can put it collectively together and be able to showcase it to maybe a lot of people that really need to hear it and might be something that they've been thinking in their minds of that question and not having an outlet to be able to speak to somebody out, being able to provide education and clarity and really break down concerning topics and solutions for people has been a huge passion for me throughout my whole career of doing the financial industry and just getting into mentorship.
And I think that's a big one is that I know because I work with you, but I know that you have a huge impact on community and you've really built a business on community and that relationship building. What made you go that route with your business?
I think from the beginning when I started Valko Financial, I always thought to myself, if I was going to serve and support people in the community, and that's the way I truly envision it, is a person sitting across the desk, I would want to make sure that they would be treated just the same as if I was across the desk, that I would be giving them honest advice, being authentic, and also having no judgment for people's circumstance. Like I've always said, I never judge a person's bank account, whether they have $1 or $1 million. Everyone needs to be validated equally and be able to have the right to be able to excel in life and to have the tools to be able to do that and the support. And I think that, unfortunately, we're in a world where there's so much judgment on financing. I found, especially in the industry that I'm in, that I really innately have a passion to help people through that. From the core of it, I feel that people have been extremely traumatized in life because of whether it's family circumstance or external circumstance, and it's impacted their finances and their overall, happiness in life and being able to thrive and prosper. And if I can help provide that support so that people don't feel as alone, where I've talked to so many people that do, that's a win for me, right? To be able to help people know that they have someone that really, truly cares about them. And that's the direction I took with my business. Why I've been so involved over the years in community initiatives, mental health initiatives, because not only have I been personally impacted by it, I have had clients and very close friends of mine and people in my industry affected by mental health. And a lot of it had to do with financial trauma. So I feel that if I can some way be able to take a lot of what that trauma has done for me and actually turn it into an opportunity of a light for someone else and to be able to give them guidance, it's what drives my passion every day. Do I love the mortgage financing business? Absolutely, I do. But my true passion is to really help people, and I'm able to do that through mortgage financing solutions, but at the native of it, I become that true confidant for that person across the desk or on the phone, so that they know they've got someone that truly cares about their holistic well-being. And I think that that's rare to find in our industry.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's rare to find in life. You've
Yeah.
definitely been a light in my life and have helped me kind of deal with that money trauma to be able to get to a standpoint of gratitude and abundance, as opposed to that fight or flight mindset where, you know, every dollar is fought for. So I definitely think that you have so much knowledge that's going to help a lot of people, and that's why I stand behind you 100%, and whatever it takes we'll do to be
Yeah.
able to share that message across. Like you use your business to share to be that source for people in our community. You grew it nationally, but now it's time to go beyond that and really share that with the world, because with everything that we've been through, whether it was COVID, recovering from COVID, now Trump and tariffs and everything, there's just so much going on where you can be that source of hope and just the reality where you give it to me straight, you let me know what the facts are, but you always look at it from a point of opportunity and how can we use this to become better people, better employers, better businesses. And I think that's really going to help change the route that people take with their lives. So I'm really excited for this.
Oh my God, that's awesome. See, you get me all pumped up. So that's why I know I'm doing good work, right? When we're making such big impact, I think that, to your point, there's been so much change. I mean, I've been doing this for 26 years in the broker space, but in the financial industry, 35. And I've never seen the change and shifts that we've had, not only in our country, but globally. That we've had in the last 5 years. If you would have told me this, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. And so there is massive impact and massive trauma from people going through this. We still haven't fully recovered from COVID. Like, even saying that, I almost cringe, right? That, 5 years ago we were in this space, but there's a lot of ramifications that came from COVID that we're not even talking about people's well-being and what the impact of that has done to our youth, because we're dealing with right now the fight for Canada's sovereignty. And who would have even thought that that would have been an issue even 6 months ago? So it's a lot of trauma. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I don't ever come across that way to people. But what I am is a person that's been through a lot of life, and not just a lot of life with myself, a lot of life with the clients and the community that I've served and support. And through that life, I can actually be able to articulate a lot of how to be able to help people navigate through this. And I think that at the core of it is probably one of the most beautiful gifts that I can help with people.
And I agree 100%. You've always been a source of education for people. I know we send out newsletters, we do master classes, we hold seminars and events where we help educate the community on these things. Is there anything right now specific that you're getting a lot of clients coming to you about that maybe they're having concerns with?
A lot, actually, right now. I feel it's multiple subjects right now that I feel people are asking for more clarity. One is to really understand tariffs, right? Like, what is the impact that it's going to have on Canada, but more, if we do it more granular, what's going to happen to them, right? In terms of with their finances, with the housing market, with interest rates, how do they navigate that? We're in a year, I wouldn't say this is the peak of mortgage renewals, even though June of this year in 2025 will be the most renewals we'll probably see for this year. It's the most mortgages that are coming up for renewals in June, but next year is a big year on mortgages coming up for renewal. So people are trying to navigate, is this a time that I need to jump into the market? Should I look at breaking my mortgage early so I can take advantage of these interest rates? It's the question that we all ask, the crystal ball, where are interest rates going? And, any savvy, economist out there is not going to forecast right now. It's just too unpredictable. We have, across the border, continuous rhetoric every day on what's happening with tariffs, and are we going to have, this percentage, and are we going to have reciprocal tariffs from Canada? And we still don't even have, we're now getting an election in place in Canada, but, not having an acting prime minister that's actually, there for the long haul has been challenging. So people want clarity. At the end of the day, they want calmness and hope. I always say that, right? And so they come to me for that type of stability. So I go back to stats to be able to help people because stats historically, they tell what the narrative is in the economy. It's not that we haven't been through this before. We've had tariffs, that conversation with the US, years ago as well, right? So this has come up again. And we have to look at how did we navigate it before, and then what does this look like going forward, and then in terms of interest rates. And I always tell people, at times where it looks very uncertain or there's a lot of bad news, because we rely so heavily on the U.S. for multiple things. Not only do we export our goods to the U.S., they in fact are about 19% of our GDP. But our interest rates, our fixed rates are based on the U.S. market. So if there's bad news in the U.S., which is happening with our economy, and you can start to see it start to slowly crumble right now at some aspects, it's good news for us in terms of interest rates. So if I give people some perspective and some education on where interest rates are going, it gives people hope, right? And it also helps them navigate where their financing is or what life choices they need to make or what they need to not make right now. Sometimes hunkering down and making sure you're financially stable as much as we can do, given your situation, can kind of weather that, that storm we're going to see a bit of. I mean, it can't sugarcoat it. I am an optimist, but I'm also a realist on it, right? So I think telling people like, oh, things are going to be amazing and this is like, that would be a disservice for what I do for people. But I do think there is opportunity for our country, like we did during COVID, where we become more resilient, domestically within Canada, and our resources end up thriving and we end up actually doing very well. So I think that we do have challenges because there are infrastructure that needs to be put in place in Canada to help with that domestic opportunity for us to thrive in Canada. But I think it will happen, but I do think it's going to take some time. So we'll have a little bit of an adjustment and a little bit of pain going forward. But I think overall, Canada needs to take, and our government needs to take a hard look at what they should have done. It's that, where you should have planted the seed 10 years ago, not just today. But if we're going to do it, let's do it today. So in 10 years from now, we're economically, a lot more stable domestically. And we've also helped develop partnerships outside the U.S., right? So that eventually if we come back to the U.S. and that partnership, which I know we're of people in Canada where we have forgiveness and we do work in alignment and we still, at the innate core of us, want to be able to be in alignment with the U.S. And I think that will always be there so that we can eventually come back to that. But then let's look at the opportunity elsewhere so that we can thrive. So when I talk to people and explain it to them, I feel that there's a little bit of that ease of that breath with them so that they can say, okay, like I can calm down now. I can look at where my finances are and we can make the right decisions for myself and my family.
Yeah. And what's interesting experiencing this is that I kind of look at it from different generations, and every generation is kind of struggling with something new. Like I know my generation right now is kind of sitting here like, do we buy a house? Is Canada going to crumble? Like what's happening? What do we do? I can get lost in all these stats, but the way you explain it to me, it just makes sense. And it allows me to feel calmer about what's going on and not stress so much. So I love that you're able to help clients of different demographics and different generations through that. Because like you said, we're so worried about everything. And stress right now is like through the roof. Everyone's stressed about something. And we know stress is not good for your health.
Absolutely not. And I think to your point, like we're in a world where social media, we have so much access to it, which is good and bad, right? There's a lot of information and there's more education that you can receive on social media than we've ever had before in a lifetime, which is amazing, but it can become overwhelming. And people get lost in the numbers and stats. So yes, there is stats that I talk to people about, to your point, but I don't go heavy on it because the reality is that people trust your opinion. They know that, I've been in this industry a long time. I've been in the financial industry, I've told you, like since day one of birth because my parents were in banking. So I understand like different, and I can navigate different economic and inflationary and recession situations because I've lived through them. So being able to tell people on a high level where we're at and be able to help break down what is probably become very complicated for them on social media because everybody's throwing out stats and graphs and that, I've had a gift to be able to do that. I can do it really, really well, right? And help people, give them some peace of mind and a bit of direction going forward. But, at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you, I don't care how long you've been an economist out there. No one can forecast given where we're at now. We can just educate ourselves on what's happened in the past
Look at
and
patterns.
and see exactly look at the patterns of what's happened before, because the economy is based on patterns and we've seen that historically. So showing that helps people, give them clarity, which helps. But if you're learning all your information on TikTok, and I'm not bashing that social media site, but because a lot of people do learn, there is good information, but it becomes overwhelming. And then you're also not giving yourself time to rest and recharge from that. And that's where I find most people are in, because they become then on that fight or flight mode. They're not actually taking time away to rest their brain, rest their bodies fully, because they're on that till 2 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and then getting up at 5 in the morning or 6, right, to start their day. That's not enough time to recharge. I don't care what anybody says to me. It's not, given how high paced we are. And if you're, you have a family and you're running with your kids and doing all the activities, and you've got a high demanding job, and then you're dealing with inflation, doing that, you're not going to get enough time to process it. And I can see it with conversations I have with people. And it's not even just about the mortgage, just talking to people in life. We're on this fight or flight mode. We're always about stress and chaos. It seems to be where we become addicted to it. And I think that I feel bad for all of us, to be honest, as a whole, globally, because we haven't had a break from it. And so that trauma very much then triggers the trauma we've gone through. We've all gone through trauma in life. To the degrees of what people have had done, it still affects your brain the same way. So how can we help calm that down and give you tools? And that's where I've really learned through, I think, my journey of being on the mortgage financing side, is that I'm more than just the numbers, right? It's about holistically helping people navigate and be better versions of themselves, to release that trauma, understand how to be able to have coping mechanisms for it, so that they can make proper decisions with their financing, and understanding, as the world changes, how to navigate that, so change doesn't become so much traumatic. It just becomes that deep breath of, okay, how do I need to pivot from where I'm at right now?
Yeah. No, you said it perfectly. We're overstimulated and we're addicted to it because it's all we've had, especially in the past 3-5 years. Now, you've always been a voice on solutions, helping people figure it out. At the end of the day, we all have problems, but there's always a way out of our problems. It's just that first step. And sometimes that's the scariest step to make. But you've always been a big voice for people who are going through this and in that stage. Is that kind of what inspired you to have these conversations on Beyond the Mortgage? Like, is that what kind of pushes that?
I think so, because I think stories help people connect. And I know when we were doing this prior to, on the Beyond the Mortgage episodes, and we had some guest speakers as well, or just when I talked about the trauma of money and how to be able to navigate through that, we had a lot of good feedback on people finding similarities in their life, or knowing someone that's gone through it, to be able to reach out. And I think that's the messaging I want to get out there, is you're not alone. There are a lot of people in the world that struggle financially, that have had similar trauma, if not the same. And the reaction and patterns of people's behavior and their life dictate what's happened. And there is studies out there that said by 7 years old, like, your subconscious has already ingrained your money mindset patterns, right? So think about that, right? And if you have had traumatic experiences, and it's not necessarily where your parents intentionally meant for you to go through that. It could have been a life circumstance they were going through at that time. I mean, my generation, my parents were ones of generations that didn't talk a lot about money, right? So our education was very limited, and it certainly wasn't in the school systems, and it still struggles in the school systems today. Like, I did a presentation for one of the universities a few months ago, and you remember, let's talk about that. Amazing.
She even said they don't receive nothing. They're not taught anything.
Yeah, exactly. They don't receive. And so the questions we were getting, I was a little bit taken back with, because, again, bright young people looking forward to facing the world and taking charge and taking direction, but a lot of them didn't even know how to really properly open up a bank account, or understanding what a TFSA is, how to be able to manage, their paychecks. And that's something that should be just as much learned at a young age, just like you understanding the ABCs, because managing your money can totally change your life, right? So it's disappointing. We again, like, I mean, I'm talking a lot of years, right? Like, the educational systems haven't evolved. They're very old systems. So how do we bring that in? So trying to look at ways like what we're doing with the podcast, speaking a lot about financial literacy, bringing and breaking down simplistic things that's okay if you don't know, so that you're in a comfortable space to learn it. And it's not overwhelming, and then you get on a path, right? It's slow and steady, right? If you're 1% every day better than where you were, and by the end of the year, you're 365% better, which is amazing, right? So that's what we're trying to do, is like the slow and steady patterns take a while to be able to create those habits. There's studies out there say it's 60 days to create that habit, right? So that's what we're trying to build, is habits, better habits for money, money habits that are better for you in your life, and it's stacking them, right? So that it's that habit stacking, right, that Mel Robbins talks about. So one after another, so innately it just becomes what your everyday is, as if you go to brush your teeth. That's at the core of what I really am passionate about, because helping people with a mortgage, I'm not saying it's easy, because it's a complicated process, and I mean we could go on about like how complex that is nowadays in Canada, but that's just the surface level of helping people. I want to help people where I've changed their life, and changing their life is actually, where were you at when you were 5, right? And then what can we do going forward to make sure that your money habits, as well as you having a roof over your head for your family, is ultimately at the best level it's at, right, for your life and your loved ones.
And you've had a long and powerful journey in the mortgage industry. Have you found that your mindset has shifted over the last few years with everything we've gone through?
Absolutely. I look back at when I first started and to where I'm at now, and it's a big shift. There's some aspects of it where it makes me a bit sad, because I feel that the world is so heavy, and especially in Canada, our financing has become so restrictive. I helped a lot of clients and families build a lot of wealth on real estate. There's massive opportunity. And I'm not saying there's not going forward, but it certainly is more challenging. And a big core of our business was helping first-time home buyers get into houses. Like, that was like such an uplifting experience to help people get their first home. And here's the biggest thing for me is that I'm not saying it was an expectation as a first time, like as a young couple getting married, to buy a house, but it was never such a challenge as it is today. And when I look at it back when I first started on the brokering space, that age group of first-time homebuyers was less than 25 years old. It was around 24. Now, if you look at first-time homebuyers, and that's like 20 years later, you're looking at first-time homebuyers at age group now like 36. So that's discouraging for me, because values have gone up, and we can say, yes, people have built wealth through their homes over the years because values have increased in certain markets in Canada. We've seen the dips, ups and downs, but that's a great way to be able to build your wealth through real estate. This is why I helped a lot of people with investments, but it becomes very challenging for first-time homebuyers if their income level hasn't gone up to where inflation is, right? And the cost of living, right? That's become so expensive. Like, we're so taxed as a country on so many things. Like, I was writing a list just this morning about how much we're taxed on. 50% on average of a person's paycheck is going towards taxes.
Wow.
Right? When you sit and think about it, right? Like, your income's taxed 30%, and then you've got, another 20% of your income, if not more, going towards multiple taxes, whether it's food or gas or, with your property taxes, right? GST, HST on items, right? Like, this government needs to relook at that and say, okay, we can't be that expensive as a country to be taxed so much, right? Because we're pushing back the opportunity of first-time home buyers. What age are they going to be able to buy a house? This is where I'm struggling. I'm seeing a lot more people move in together with their children, and that's not a bad thing. Generational homes is actually, I think, a nice family unit, but I think people should have choice or options to do that, and we're very limited, I find, in Canada for that. So, there's got to be some rebalancing. So I'm hopeful that we'll see that going forward. But again, it's going to take some time, and we're going to have to see what happens we've got an election coming up that was just announced this week from the new Liberal Prime Minister in place, Carney. So that'll be coming up in April. And I think whether, again, he stays in or there's a shift in government, there's got to be a better proactive looking at Canadians' well-being and what needs to be done, especially more than ever, considering we've got sovereignty at risk in Canada. People, the amount of people that have come into our country that now are going back, the growth of the population of Canada, I think, is at risk. So we have to really come together more unified. And, hopefully out of this, because I'm an optimist, it'll actually end up being a really good thing for us down the road.
Yeah. You've always been a lot more than just about the business. The business is a part of it, but you go way beyond that, whether it's with community events or just being there as a source of help and empowerment for people. Where would you say that comes from?
Growing up, my mom was very involved in the community. So I watched her as one of the first women branch managers with one of the banks in Canada, which is, I'm very proud of her. And when we talk about mentorship, she definitely was a big mentor for me to watch her build a community as a woman in a very male-dominated industry and be able to have quite a big presence and impact on people. So the community initiatives that she did with the branch, which was something unknown at that point, people didn't have events, or she used to do cookbooks for the community. And, she had a lot of clientele that she established through that. So I learned innately just to give back, right? No matter what employment I was in, and I worked for the banks, financial institutions before I went into being self-employed as a mortgage broker and then owning the brokerage. I always knew that giving back was just at the core of what I had to do because I grew up that way. So I started, again, very small. I would partner with other businesses that were doing corporate community events so that I could be a part of that. And then eventually my goal was to be able to do where we're at today. So, having a big event in our community and, having hundreds of people there to be able to really give back to the hospitals in a big way. So that was this year was a big accomplishment for us.
Yeah,
and
you basically went from partnering on community events to hosting over 300 people at a gala for mental health.
It's pretty crazy, right?
Let's just a round of applause for that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I sit there and look at that. I'm like, yeah, I told you, right? I wrote that down like 4 years ago, and, we just kept at it, and, it comes together when you do good work, right? So,
that's one thing I want the listeners to really remember. If you don't know Tracy, if she puts her mind to something, you better bet on her, because I'm telling you, it's coming to life. Is there any exciting topics that you're looking forward to us jumping into in the next few episodes?
Well, I think what would be really good is to talk about, again, breaking down some of is it exciting? Some of the stuff is, I think all of it gives people more education out there. Breaking down, understanding where tariffs are, what the impact is on that, to help people with their businesses. What resources are out there to actually support people? There is a lot. The government's actually giving a lot of support to people, so we're going to break down some of that as well. Money mindset's a big one for me. This is part of the reason why we brought up Beyond the Mortgage. Exciting opportunities of some new developments that I'm working on, partnering in our community to really advance people's alleviation of trauma with money and abundance, right? Being able to have that abundance mindset. So I'm very excited. We're going to have some pretty amazing things coming up of what I'm going to be experiencing over the next month, as you know, and be able to bring that back into the community to be able to help a lot of people through which I've realized is that journey of, trauma and being able to get yourself, balanced again, right? So that you can be in a better mindset. So we're working with some key players in the community to be able to partner on that. So yeah, I'm excited, but I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to give it away, right?
One thing for sure, though, is that we do want you listeners to be a big part of this. So please, if you have any questions that you want us to jump into or any topics, send them our way. Tracy, if anyone wants to send questions, where can they send that to? How can they reach you?
You can connect with me on Beyond the Mortgage on our Instagram. We're very active on social media. So that is the premise of this podcast, is we want to hear from you, the community. We do this on a monthly basis we're on Rogers TV, and we speak a lot to the community about mortgage financing and go through. But this podcast is for the people, right? It's to really make sure that we're answering your questions, your needs, not only on mortgage solutions, but where we're at in the economy. What are you struggling with right now? Because that helps us bring other experts to be able to have that conversation. We have a big reach, so being able to have guest speakers and also because of the life experience that I have, being able to bring that and break it down for people, I'm excited to be able to do that for people.
For listeners who may feel that money talk is intimidating or overwhelming, what can you say to them about tuning into this podcast?
You're not alone, right? And I really want people to understand that. People say that very lightly, oh, you're not alone and everybody goes through. But I really, at the core of it, want to tell people they're really not alone. This is a very challenging time for people, mentally, financially, but money trauma has been around for a very long time. And people have had extreme situations that I have seen, and they felt so alone and have been sitting in that for such a long time. I want people to really know they're not. And there are people like myself that truly care about making it better for you. So you need to reach out, right? You need to listen, and you need to know that a lot of the stories that we bring are there to be able to provide some connection for you and some solutions so that we can help you through this. There are always solutions to situations. It may look dark in the time, and I tell people sometimes you have to take a step back to take a full step forward. And when you do that, I typically find that when we're able to resolve it, it might not necessarily be the way people want it, but in the end, it actually is. And I think life teaches us a lot of hard lessons because we're not asking for that help. And everyone at some point needs help, right? So I really want people to understand that because I always say, like, I'm beyond that mortgage financing, right? I really innately care about people. And I want people to understand that this is an open forum to have some really true, authentic conversation for you to resonate with and to be able to make yourself better.
Yeah, and that's why a key piece of this podcast and the Beyond the Mortgage movement is creating that community.
Yeah.
I'd love to close out today's episode by having you speak to the listener who's feeling a little lost or unsure about their finances or about the state of Canada. What's one thing you want them to walk away from after listening to this episode?
What I want them to walk away with is to know that there is always solutions in times of uncertainty. It's making sure that you have the right support, the right connection, and know that there is people in the world that truly care about you. And there is always a solution at the time when people feel the most darkness out there. And we've been able to do that time and time again. So I want people to understand that, right? So it's important to know that this is a platform for some authentic, raw conversation to really help people that are struggling to get you on a path of holistic and financial wellness. And that's what we're here to do.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to our first episode.
And if you loved what you heard and want to hear more of our continuing episodes, make sure that you subscribe to one of our channels. We're going to have some exciting content, some great guests as well. And again, we're here to be able to help you on your path of financial success with Beyond the Mortgage.